What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaron, and welcome as we talk about my top 10 favorite films of 2024. I know, I'm very late to the party on this one. I gotta say, this list has been in development for the last 3 months with around my busy schedule and actually falling behind a lot of movies because of the upcoming Oscar season. It's been tough trying to watch everything that I could, actually find time to pay attention, to actually know what was worthy, because at one point I had like a top 25 narrowing down to a top 15, and then I really had to challenge myself and knock it down to the top 10. So finding placement was another beast all in itself, but these 10 choices were definitely something that was just my personal favorite. It may or may not be your favorite, or it might not even be the Academy's favorite at all, and it might have been just completely ignored and skated under the radar. But with that being said, I also like to bring up some of my honorable mentions, some of the strong candidates what would have ended up on my top 10 had it not been for these other wonderful films. So I would have to say that some of my honorable mentions would have to be Challengers, Civil War, Dune Part 2, Long Legs, Monkey Man, Oddity, and Turtles All the Way Down. And now getting into the top 10 list of my favorites of 2024. At number 10, we have Wicked. I know, I can see it all right now. I can see one section of people going, why is it so low on the top 10 category? And I can see other people going, why did you put Wicked on your top 10? Because I could. Because I was completely surprised with it, because I pretty much knew nothing about this entire production, even though it was back in 2003 when they started doing stage plays. And of course, there was the book. But I only really knew the popular song and Defying Gravity. And getting to know that this was a different world of what Wizard of Oz is really built up to be, I saw the trailer and I wasn't impressed. I thought they showed way too much. I got dragged by my friends to go and see it, and I was completely taken by surprise. I thought that the performances of Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were absolutely impressive, and the production, that just so much efforts, and just the fan base that really blew up after it, just astonishing. At number 9, we have The First Omen. Now, again, another thing that really took me by surprise, because I saw the trailers, I saw the posters, it wasn't really well marketed, and I was like, why would I want to go see a prequel to something that's already been beloved and a classic too? Like, what more can they say about this? And I was already riding the high on the Immaculate train with Sydney Sweeney. I thought she did an incredible job in that, and I thought, man, First Omen is really just coming in late with the same type of story. But I remember seeing a bunch of random, just really positive reviews about it after the first week. So I dragged my buddy Aaron to go and see it, and some of the scare scenes really got to us. I remember him screaming at the top of his lungs, and that was the first time in a long time that I've actually heard my best friend Aaron actually get scared out of something in theaters, and that got me too. So where they took this was very daring and bold, and that ending, the way that thing wrapped things up with the classic first original movie, perfect. The number 8 spot has to go to Caddo Lake. Now, this came from the same writers and directors who have worked alongside M. Night Shyamalan on a show called The Servant. We got this going straight to streaming on Max. I saw some of the trailers and they didn't really do too much for me. I was really just up and down of where this is going to go, because I'm not going to lie, a lot of the films that M. Night Shyamalan has either directed or helped produce didn't really do it for me this year, and this one, even though he's just the producer, this one took me completely by surprise. I had no idea what we were getting into. They kind of marketed this as some kind of horror thriller, some kind of mystery, and for the first 40 minutes, I didn't know what to make of it. It was a lot of family drama that was going on, and then there's a little bit of a supernatural edge that doesn't necessarily get a lot of explanation, but once we push through that veil, a lot of things start to unravel and also come together at the same time. And I thought it was pretty thrilling and definitely dug into my heartstrings and just tore it to shreds. Coming in at number 7 would have to be Nosferatu, the 2024 reimagining by Robert Eggers, and I loved what he did with this version here. There's a lot of gothic, just horror and dread, and a little bit of romance and drama just brewed so beautifully. And although it really stems from just borrowing a lot of the influences from the original classic and other iterations of it, including Dracula's lore, the performances were just so breathtaking. Everything that was practical, everything that was visual. I mean, if you had told me that Bill Skarsgård was not the actor who played Nosferatu, aka Count Orlok, then I wouldn't have believed you. Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Hoult definitely shined in their performances here. Like, I've seen their other performances before, and they just took the gold on this one. Coming in at the number 6 spot is going to be another one that's very controversial, that's going to have 3 sections of people who are going to be like, why is it so high on your list? Why is it on your list at all? Why is it so low? And that's going to be Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, this is an idea, a conception that a lot of people have been anticipating, and I know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just not the same as it used to be before. And even with the promise that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was going to introduce a lot of cameos and a lot of different universes just clashing and collabing, because we are in this multiverse phase, and, you know, we didn't really get what we were expecting in those other films. But in Deadpool and Wolverine, that held a lot of promise. That was the only big Marvel blockbuster that was going to be coming out in the year of 2024, so we held on to just a little bit of hope. Even though there would have been better scripts, this turned out a lot better than I was anticipating. This long-awaited and anticipated collaboration between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman was just absolutely perfect. It's pure fan service, and I enjoyed actually going to the theater and being surrounded by so many people. Just a lot of the excitement and just a lot of the surprises that we were given, even some of our theories actually coming to fruition. That was so great. That was such an experience. It was almost like watching the last 2 Avengers movies where, you know, an entire crowd, an entire fan base was there to support it no matter what, to have a great time at the movies, no matter how dumb, no matter how grandeur it was. It's Deadpool and Wolverine, and all the cameos, just the cherry on top. All right, we have come down to the final 5 films of my favorite of 2024. Now, I gotta say, up at one point, you could randomize, flip these choices around in any ranking, and any of these 5 movies would have been my number 1 of the last year. So, as we can get into it, number 5 would have to be Inside Out 2. I love what we got here. Some of the new elements, some of the new emotions that were introduced, some of the rules and lore that really built out into, you know, the world of emotions and just feelings and the things that just go up in our head. Just wonderful, wonderful way that they structured that. Everything that they did for a sequel, especially with the characters of joy and anxiety really butting heads on who's right, who's wrong, what are the important things that they should be valuing, especially at Riley's age, who is taking on another conception about where her life is headed. And with the way that she makes a lot of decisions and some of her actions, which may be something agreeable or disagreeable amongst the audience, whether you're a child, whether you're a young teenager or an adult, I just thought it was beautiful. I mean, whether it was secondhand embarrassments to probably, you know, friendships and all that kind of stuff, that really got me. I mean, and at some point I ended up crying. Coming in at the number 4 spot would have to be Heretic. And I am just sad that this movie had maybe 1 Golden Globe nominee and just did not make it to the Oscars, because this is the kind of religious horror that really took me by surprise and really just spun the genre on its own head. Because normally when you hear religious horror, you kind of get, you know, possession films, demon films. A lot of the suspense really hinders on the conviction and how they're willing to back those up, whether it has shaken their belief system or just keeping their faith as strong as they could no matter what is being said. Because in the end, it's really just conversation. And a lot of people were definitely waiting for some kind of supernatural edge to it, some kind of big grandeur twist, but this was just enough, especially with the wonderful performances by Chloe East, Sophie Thatcher, and a knockout performance by Hugh Grant, who never does roles like this. So I'm actually sad that, you know what, he was nominated for one of the best actors of the year, but definitely deserves his flowers. All right, we are at the top three. So coming in at number three would have to be The Wild Robots. I saw little to no marketing for this movie, and it's probably because a lot of my algorithm is not necessarily kid-friendly. So I was hearing a lot of great reviews about it. Unfortunately, I got too busy to go out and see this in theaters. I definitely wanted to see this with my nieces and nephews because I knew this would be the kind of movie that they would be into. I wasn't gonna go alone, and I missed out on it. I cried so much. So much more than I did in Inside Out 2, which was very much surprising because there's a lot of these elements that really hammer home, the relationship and the dynamic of, motherhood and, just parents and children, and also just the dynamic of friendships all together. And the way that they tackle even the subject of nature, especially when it comes down to, comparing it to something like Zootopia, where a lot of animals in the woods, they don't necessarily get along together like any other animated cartoon. They eat to kill in order to survive. And, just the way that this robot kind of comes in, you get a little bit of that Wall-E moment, and just the upbringing of all of these various different characters was just so beautiful. And just a lot of moments were very suspenseful at the same time. There's this big grandeur epic along with just the emotional and dramatic heartstrings that are going to be pulled, yanked, and just demolished. I ended up watching it like 3 times in 1 week. It was so good. Wonderful voice talents by Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Catherine O'Hara, and Stephanie Hsu. I really hope they take home Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, but everything else on that nominee list is just as fantastic. Coming in at number 2, and I've debated on putting this on my number 1 at some point, but it's just the final 20 minutes that sort of bug me. And that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It's just a lot. And a lot is, excessive. And excessive, which almost throws the point of this beautiful metaphor and its just ridiculous message that I was trying to hammer home. And that is number 2, The Substance. This has 5 Academy Award nominations. I wish Margaret Qualley got a nominee for Best Supporting Actress because she carries this film just as much as Demi Moore, but Demi Moore, to be a Golden Globe winner, as well as going for a Best Actress nomination for the Oscars, that's going to be a winner for horror fans. And for Demi Moore to win, to get some kind of recognition for a role like this, is just a milestone about everything she's done in her acting career. I remember being so excited to see this film because the trailers just look so messed up without actually showing you what it's getting you as the audience into. And so I sat in a really packed theater. A lot of my entire auditorium ended up being an older demographic. And as the film progressively gets worse as far as the plot goes, I saw so many people walk out. My head editor-in-chief, Barry Wurst, and my other best friend / film critic, Aaron Medeiros, they were just checked out in those final 20 minutes. But there is just something about this absurd and over-the-top beauty standards that are just showcased in front of you, very bombarded, whether that would be visually or just by the sound design. And just everything in this production was just so bombastic and crazy and insane and sexy and just nerve and stomach churning. I think Stanley Kubrick and David Cronenberg would be absolutely proud of this madness of a movie this is. For this movie to at all get some kind of Oscar recognition is just beyond me. But this is not something I recommend for the faint of heart. This is absolutely ridiculous. Definitely has a messaging that goes over the top above, some of the elements that I loved about The Black Swan. And, this is just something completely out of your comfort zone that I highly recommend you watch even just once. Whew. All right, this is really taking me a lot out of breath. It's like I'm doing a bunch of mini reviews all in one go, but my number 1, my favorite film of 2024 would have to go to Strange Darling. Now, this is a little indie thriller that took a lot of critics by surprise, screening at a lot of other festivals, and then it finally got a worldwide release in like the middle of last year, and I feel like not a lot of people saw it. It was definitely something I wasn't expecting. I was trying hard to stay away from the trailers because it just really enticed me, especially with the just breathtaking performances by Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner, who absolutely stole the show, and the presentation, which presents itself non-linear, and it's not like it hasn't been done like that before. Quentin Tarantino does it all the time, but it's a thriller that presents itself in 6 different chapters in out of order sequence, and I absolutely loved it. So many of these sections of scenes of these chapters just really recontextualized itself every single time it came up on screen. Like, I'm watching one scene, I'm already trying to fill in the blanks, trying to see where this is going, how it all started, and then we would get to another scene that's a different point in time, and it just changes everything you already know and is already starting to fill in the gaps and unravel as it went. And I just loved, I was so in love with that kind of style and structure and the way it was executed. The cinematography was just immaculate, especially with the color schemes that they really mess with as far as background aesthetics to costumes and just some of the lighting, some of the music choices. And, like some scenes felt very action heavy, very noir thriller. And then some moments felt very horror adjacent. And then some scenes felt very romantic drama and a little bit of humor just kind of splattered all throughout. And just some scenes will just completely sideblind you and just whiplash the heck out of you, not knowing where things are gonna go. That was quite a treat. And I think going forward, it really set a different bar about my expectations from movie trailers, because I'm already trying to fill in the blanks of the little information and visual details that I'm getting from that little 2-minute clip. And then when going to watch the movie, I like how this movie was able to take a lot of my expectations and really just drop it on its head and spin it, and to go in just in a completely blind and opposite direction was a real treat. It was just something that I never normally get to feel, especially going to the cinemas where I'm already predicting where things are about to happen because little scenes are either not presented to me yet or probably ripped away in the final cut. Well, alright guys, that concludes my top 10 films of 2024. Please go ahead and share me your list. What was your favorite films of last year? Go ahead and comment down below. Thank you guys again so much for taking some time out of your day to hear me talk some movies. I'm Jared Agbanawag. I got some reviews coming up for you. Just kicking off the year of 2025. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you guys at the theater.